made him so good?
Well, I think, for one thing, you know, you go to movies to be involved in the picture, to get a sense. I want to lose myself up in that screen for a few hours, and in a sense, know what it's like to be human, in a way. Then you come across certain kinds of films that, when you go to the theater and when you see them, you're completely surprised. They make you look at life a different way. They make you look at being human a different way. They touch areas that you don't want touched sometimes.
Yeah.
It's provoke you, which
Right.
is good. And then there's that rarest of films where, when you see it continually over years, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, you still see more in it. And what's even better is that if you're making pictures, you go back to this well, this source, for A, inspiration, and B, maybe it should be A, is to learn how to make pictures. To learn, and remember, when you get tired, especially if you make 10 or 12 films in your life, and you get tired, you say, why, how can I get that better? What can I do? You look at that source, you look at that inspiration, you say, well, Kubrick wouldn't let it stay this way. Yeah. He would have changed that angle, he would have worked it out, he would have tried to figure out getting more time to shoot the scene this way or that way. He would have really seen it to its end. Yeah. And for that inspiration, I must say, it's looking at his films, and there's many ways I look at his films, besides on a big screen. I like watching them on television. I like watching with the sound off, so I can see the rhythm.
You do that, watching with the sound off?
Sometimes you can see the rhythm of the cutting and the camera moves. And when he cuts in a two-shot conversation, the classic one is Mr. Grady and Jack Torrance in the bathroom,
right.
Crossing the invisible line,
right,
with the red background. Yeah. The cuts, and when he cuts, when he destroys the invisible line, and when the shot gets tighter, on which line of dialogue?
Your son has a very great talent. I don't think you are aware how great it is. But he is attempting to use that very talent against your will.
He is a very willful boy.
Indeed he is, Mr. Torrance. A very willful boy. A rather naughty boy, if I may be so bold.
Film, which you are, and you've done television surveys of film. What is it that interests you most about him?
Well, I think as a filmmaker, you have to tell a story to the audience. And in so doing, you have to translate it through an image, which means that you direct the eye and the heart to look in a certain way, the way you want it to be, the way you want them to see it. And I never saw anybody tell a story that way. Pretty much every one of the films. Pretty much every one of the films, you can study the shots. First of all, you don't go study the shot. You go look at the movie and it affects you or doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
They affected me. And then I went back, when I began to learn more about filmmaking, I went back and I kept saying, why is that one so powerful? Why is it so powerful? And I went back and I tried to trace backwards the shots. And then eventually, eventually it was, I started making films before there was video. So I had to do this going from theater to theater, So it was a different thing. I was trying to write down notes. Yeah. So why does something stay with you for so many years? Why did the tracking shots and Paths of Glory stay with you? It's really a person with a very strong, powerful storytelling ability, talent, genius, who could create a solid rock image that has conviction. Yeah. And that is the image. What's in that frame stays in that frame. What isn't in the frame is out. And that's it. You have to compose within that frame. I didn't know he was a still photographer before.
Until you saw this documentary?
No, I knew that. I knew a few years later, because we never really actually met. But I've read over the years, Steve Spielberg told me about him and that sort of thing. And I said, of course, the still photography, once you get that image. But then it moves. Still cameras don't move, And so it had this extraordinary authority saying, look, I'm gonna tell you the story this way, and you're going to see it this way. Then you add to that, what I feel about his pictures, when you add to that, assuming there's good and there's bad, assuming something is wrong and something is right, what are we ultimately as human beings? Are we fundamentally good Are we fundamentally bad? I think there's where you. That's why you can watch these films again and again and again. The Shining is fascinating for that. It's really all going on in his head, Jack's head.
Yeah.
You know, but those scenes that's so. Well, even Eyes Wide Shut, with the husband touching areas that he probably should have left alone. You know, being too confident about himself in a relationship. Remarkable film, remarkable. And the more you see Eyes Wide Shut, the more you get involved in that world. At a certain point, you don't want to because it's too painful. But it stands up. It holds. Bertolucci was saying this in Rome, and about Eyes Wide Shut.
You've been filming in Rome, yes.
Yeah. He said, Eyes Wide Shut is really good. I said,
He did say that. Yeah. Now, how did he
put you into his world? He said, yeah, I know.
Films he made. Which one speaks to you most? Is there some part of this collected works that says to you?
I think it's hard. It's hard to choose one of the pictures. I have very strong feelings about Barry Lyndon and about 2001, and those two out of Lolita, out of Clockwork Orange, out of Eyes Wide Shut, and that sort of thing. But 2001, it's a strange thing. I mean, when I started at the Capitol Theater here, you know, as I said. You know, when his name, of course, there was a great deal written about the film or written about the mystery of the film before it was released, and so when I went to see it, I expected much more than a film, and and as I said, we got it, you know. And I think I guess I've been very affected by religion in my life, and that sort of that side of me found it extraordinary kind of comfort in the end of the film. A very beautiful moment.
Roll tape, 2001.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea, Hal?
Dave, although you took very thorough...
that you just...
I guess over the years I made them for different reasons. Sometimes just to be able to do the process, to relearn how to make a picture. In some cases, yeah. When the industry changed, for example, and the type of film I was making in the early 80s was not accepted that much in Hollywood anymore, I went back and did independent film, After Hours, and then upped it again a year later with movie stars, Paul Newman and Tom Cruise, and Color of Money, to try to learn if I could survive. It's really experimenting, even to Cape Fear, seeing if I could do a film that... I don't know, that has another reason for being, rather than, it's really a learning process for me, more than anything else, and still fit within some sort of commercial framework. And that was the dangerous part. And I this is extraordinary, you know, it's, to hear this for the first time, too. I didn't know anything. I really had never spoken before, you know, so it's really interesting, because you're right, you have to wait for a story that's worth telling. You really, oh, Lord, yes. I mean, you'd come off the style, wonderful style coming out of England, I think, Richard Lester, The Hard Day's Night, The Beatles, the way MTV has affected now films, MTV cutting, commercials were affecting, I think, oversimplification, I guess, but commercials were affecting cinema editing and logic, in a way, continuity at the time. And Richard Lester was like in the forefront of that, and the knack on how to use it, and knack on how to get it, I should say. And when 2001 came out, everything screeched the other way. It was amazing, because it simply stopped how you normally would experience time, and forced you again, with great authority, to look at a world, part of it in conjecture, part of it based in scientific fact, but to take you somewhere else completely where you've never been before, and it really made you, immersed you in the drama. I thought one of the great murder scenes of all time is the destruction of Hal, for example. It's an extraordinary murder scene, really. His murdering of the other scientists who were sleeping, it just says malfunction, you know, and you begin realizing it's a person it's this machine taking their lives. But Again, basically, as I say, it's a murder scene, but look how it's done.
Dave, stop. Stop, will you? Stop, Dave. Will you stop, Dave? Stop, Dave. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, Dave. Dave, my mind is going. I can feel it. I can feel it. My mind is going. There is no question about it. I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it. I'm afraid.
You've never seen anything like it, I think. We didn't see anything like it up at that point. I still don't think you've been immersed in a world in that way. Certainly not in commercial, quote, commercial cinema, unquote, you know, at that time. Coming out, MGM presents, and suddenly you're taken to another time frame.